Hello everyone, I'm Fatima Jiddi from the Laboratory of Scientific Engineering of Organization at UNCG Casablanca, and I have the pleasure to present to you today the research framework for explaining the path that links corporate social responsibility to customer loyalty. All right. Well, the first question that we have to ask ourselves is, why is there a need to explore the path that links CSR to customer loyalty in the hospitality industry? And to answer that, we should bear in mind four important points. First, customer loyalty is the most crucial task according to most CEOs all over the world. Second, with the increase of consumers' awareness toward environmental and social issues, CSR became critical in attracting and retaining customers. Third, CSR's influence on customer loyalty is mainly explained, not directly, through mediators that without them, no linkage seems to exist. And this is so important because it justifies the need to use mediators and why not moderators for explaining the impacts of CSR on customer loyalty, as there is almost no linkage without them. Fourth, and finally, the choice of the industry, tourism industry in general, and more particularly hospitality sector, can be explained by the fact that this sector contributes to environmental problems such as pollution, global warming, waste management, and so on. So basically, this study is going to provide future researchers an opportunity to thoroughly understand the road that ties CSR to customer loyalty. So for today's agenda, we are going to develop our conceptual model. And first, so we're going to dissect each keyword by developing it better. So first, we're going to conceptualize the notion of CSR, meaning choosing the dimension of CSR for carrying out this research. Second, dimensionality of customer loyalty, meaning the measurement of customer loyalty taken into consideration in this study. And the three next points regards the development of mediators. What are they? The impacts of CSR on them, the relationship between them, and finally, we are going to talk about the moderators. First, conceptualization of CSR. Well, in 1979, Carroll has conceptualized CSR by emphasizing four businesses' responsibilities: economic, legal, ethical, and philanthropic. And in 2016, he updated, well, not really updated, but kind of suggested new classification, the required CSR and desired CSR. Required CSR comprises both economic and legal, and desired CSR comprises both philanthropic and ethical. And by the way, ethical can be classified into expected CSR, but again, it comes back to the main classification of desired CSR. So accordingly, scholars started to modify Carroll's pyramid to match their industry characteristics. And generally in the tourism industry, they try to replace the ethical responsibility with environmental responsibility, as it's so important in this sector. In the same context, we're going to update Carroll's pyramid, but we're taking into account only the desired CSR and add the society component for its relevance for customers in general and in hospitality industry in particular. Now, for the dimensionality of customer loyalty. To measure customer loyalty, there are three main approaches. The first one is behavioral loyalty. Second one, attitudinal, and finally, composite, also called integrative loyalty. So for behavioral loyalty, it refers to the repeat buying or use of a specific product or service over time. Attitudinal loyalty refers to the psychological commitment to or positive effect toward a company. And composite loyalty, it's the re-preferring products and services of the same company and recommending them. So here, actually, it's basically both behavioral and attitudinal loyalty. And I'm going to give an example to illustrate the difference between the two approaches, behavior and attitudinal. Well, actually, you can like, for instance, a 5-star hotel or a luxurious hotel, talk positively about it or even recommending it, but without necessarily going to it, maybe because you can't afford it. But in behavioral loyalty, it's directly linked to a company's profitability. But again, the point here is that you can be loyal to a hotel without really expressing a positive commitment to it. Maybe just because it's near to you, to your work, you will stay in it. And this shows actually the importance to take and to talk about both dimensions into consideration for a fuller understanding of the construct studied. So now, what are the research gaps found in the literature? First, there is an inadequacy of gathering together the two aspects of loyalty in one measure. The majority of researchers have measured customer loyalty as one construct without separating it into two main aspects. And authors like Martinez and Del Bosque have emphasized the importance of considering the two constructs separately. So this is the proposed customer loyalty dimension. We are going to take into consideration both measures, behavior and attitudinal, but separately. Well, let's move to the customer loyalty antecedents, meaning mediators. So here we have basically many mediators, and this research incorporated social identity and exchange variable as mediators, which is considered as mixing two different theories, social identity theory and social exchange theory. Also, researchers that combine both theories, they remain restricted. So actually, I just want to emphasize something that during this presentation, I will always support the hypothesis by citation from the literature review, as all hypotheses are derived, deducted from the literature, and it's a theoretical framework development. So trust, first there is trust. What is trust? Trust is a willingness to rely on an exchange partner in whom one has confidence. Several researchers, they asserted the relationship between trust and loyalty. And to win customers' loyalty, the path starting from winning their trust is mandatory. Authors like Chaudhry and Holbrook, they have confirmed that behavior and attitudinal loyalty, they correlate with trust to customer loyalty. And therefore, we suggest that customer trust has a positive influence on both behavioral and attitudinal loyalty. For customer company identification, it's a psychological state of connection between a customer and a firm that arises from identifying a significant intersection between the customer's perception of their identity and their perception of the company's identity. So this concept remains still underutilized, and the impact has been affirmed through various academic studies. Therefore, we suggest that customer company identification has a positive influence on customer loyalty. Third, satisfaction. It's the difference between perception and expectation. Many researchers assert that customer satisfaction positively impacts loyalty, and researchers in the hospitality industry, such as Perez and Del Bosque, have shown that satisfaction is one of the vital antecedents of customer loyalty to take into consideration. This is why we have hypothesis 3A and hypothesis 3B. Now let's move to the impact of CSR on mediators. For CSR and customer company identification, when customers, they are aware of a company's CSR practices, they will better identify with it than customers who are not aware. So a company will project an image of a caring company personality to customers, which facilitates their self-definition, and customers generally are keen to be identified with the socially responsible company to improve their self-esteem. This is hypothesis 4. Hypothesis 5 is about CSR and trust. The firm which is perceived as socially responsible is more likely to be trusted, and various authors, they found that hotel customers approve that CSR practices supports their trustworthiness. For CSR and satisfaction, it's hypothesis 6. Customers, they are satisfied by companies' products and services engaging in CSR activities. Lee and Hale, they found that CSR activities have a positive relationship with customer satisfaction, and overall satisfaction is generated for products or services from a socially responsible company. Now let's move to the relationship between mediators. customer company identification and trust, which relates to hypothesis 7. Customers, they are more likely to identify themselves with trustworthy companies that convey an image of being caring and honest. And the trust derives when a customer is identified to a company that conveys good values such as CSR practices. Trust and satisfaction. Various studies, they assert that trust precedes customer satisfaction, and the trust creates a positive attitude toward a particular organization, which increases satisfaction. And in the hospitality industry, scholars like Christo, this is just an example, they have confirmed the relationship between trust and satisfaction, and therefore we postulate that trust has a positive influence on satisfaction. The last one is the relationship between customer company identification and satisfaction, which relates to hypothesis 9. Various studies, they support that identification is a factor toward customer satisfaction. Some authors, they argue that identification precedes satisfaction because a customer identifies himself to a company before he even becomes a customer. And the higher is the identification, the more the customer is satisfied with the company. Finally, let's move to the role of moderators. So I have performed a bibliometric analysis of 11 years of CSR and on customer loyalty and CSR literature, and it has been reported from the finding that there is a lack of taking into consideration the role of moderators in explaining this particular relationship. And later research has analyzed the socio-demographic factors as drivers toward creating perceived image of a CSR strategy. Various authors, they have supported that socio-demographic factors influence the way customers perceive CSR practices. And finally, we have Raza and al. In 2020, they suggested using socio-demographic variables as moderators. And for so, we have taken into consideration the age, the gender, the education as moderators for hypothesis 10, 11, and 12. And just right behind those circles, we have authors that have supported the relationship between CSR and age, CSR and gender, CSR and educational level. So this is our proposed conceptual model. We have 3 mediators and 3 moderators as well. We have 3 dimensions of CSR, environmental philanthropic community. And for customer loyalty, we have taken into consideration to separate the customer loyalty into 2 approaches, behavioral loyalty and attitudinal loyalty separately, so that we can have a fuller understanding of the concept and for a fuller understanding of the analysis of this path and the road that links CSR to customer loyalty. Well, in response to the literature gap, we have proposed a new conceptual model. In fact, this research has also various recommendations. First, this conceptual framework needs to be validated empirically. Second, the conceptual framework can also be validated empirically for different contexts and sectors. Third, future researchers should test this research in developing countries. Why? Because many studies have been dedicated mainly to the developed world. And finally, future scholars may consider other mediators like brand image, emotion, commitment, and other moderators like cultural background, religion, for explaining the relationship between CSR and customer loyalty. Thank you for your attention.